Now let's look into the more advanced concept of Jenkins agents. So the Jenkins architecture is designed for distributed build environments. It allows us to use different environments for each build project, balancing the workload among multiple agents running jobs in parallel. So the Jenkins controller is the original node in the Jenkins installation, and the Jenkins controller administers the Jenkins agents and orchestrates their work. So including scheduling jobs on agents and monitoring agents. So agents may be connected to the Jenkins controller using either local or cloud computers. The agents require a Java installation and a network connection to the Jenkins controller. Let's take one agent. It's configuring agents with Docker. Jenkins agents can be launched in physical machines, virtual machines, Kubernetes clusters, and with Docker images. So in these slides and the forthcoming slides, uh, sorry, this slide connects Docker agents to Jenkins with SSH. Let's do that example, but before that, let us look into this concept also, using multiple agents and how can we get benefit out of using multiple agents. So in all, if you look into that in our previous slide or session that we have discussed, we have taken some example, that is Docker. In all the previous example that we have considered consists of only a single agent has been used. This means Jenkins will allocate an executor where one is available, regardless of how it is labeled or configured. Not only can this behavior be overridden, but pipeline allows utilizing multiple agents in the Jenkins environment from within the same Jenkins file. So, which can be helpful for more advanced use cases such as executing builds or tests across multiple platforms. If you see this example on the right side, on the rightmost portion, you can see the Jenkins file. If you look into this file, the build stage will be, let me show you that. Here is the build stage. The build stage will be performed on one agent. You see that? And built results will be reused on two subsequent agents labeled Linux. You see that? This is another agent, and then test on Windows respectively. This is how a multiple agents work. So what's the main purpose or benefit of multiple agents? It allows us to use different environments for each build project balancing. So each build project for balancing the workload among multiple agents running the jobs in parallel. So this gives a huge benefit for Jenkins. It brings a lot of difference in handling advanced or complicated and complex projects in Jenkins. You see this example, this is the best example for us. Here, let me go through this one more time. So what is this first? If you see that a pipeline is the a main directive, pipeline directive. Inside that you have opened the first block, that is pipeline block from here to here. Inside that the first agent is the controller agent, the main agent, and after that this we have three agents here. Okay, stages. In first stage is build stage. Build stage is executed by agent any, so maybe the controller agent, and after that once it is built, you will get an output, an artifact. This artifact should be used in another agent, that is a Linux agent. This Linux agent, that is the stage 2, is test on Linux, and the agent has been labeled as a Linux. So there it takes the artifact from the previous agent and Here it's gonna run JUnit tests and it will build target.xml reports. Then after that we have a final stage, that is test on Windows. For that again we will take the artifact from the previous stage, that is build stage, into Windows agent, and then here it's gonna build, it's gonna test it and save the reports in .xml file. So that's how you can use the same artifact and run the tests in different types of agents. One is Linux OS, other one is um, Windows agent. So let's look into the steps in each stage here. So the stash step here, this stash step allows capturing files matching an inclusion pattern. So here you can see that the pattern for reuse within the same pipeline. So once the pipeline has completed its execution, stashed files are deleted from the Jenkins controller. Then we have the parameter, the second one, you see that agent, this the agent directive, and then you have the agent, the parameter in agent or node. These are agent or node allows for any valid Jenkins label expression, consults the pipeline syntax. So here you see that if you want to see more, you just go and visit the Jenkins documentation. Then we have the third one. Here we have used unstash. Unstash will retrieve the named stash from the Jenkins controller into the pipeline's current workspace. Then we have the fourth step. Here we have used the bat. The bat script allows for executing bat scripts on Windows based platforms. So this is how we can use multiple agents with Jenkins, and we can have a one Jenkins controller and remaining can use as other agents or nodes. So now let's build our first pipeline in Jenkins using Docker. So many organizations use Docker to unify the build and test environments across machines and to provide an efficient mechanism for deploying applications. So, in Jenkins, it started with version 2.5, and all the Jenkins versions are providing the ways the ways to integrate a Docker containers or Docker images inside the Jenkins pipelines, inside the Jenkins files. So here in this session or slide, we are gonna do some examples of Docker container or Docker images building using Jenkins file. Let's do that. So this is our first example. So customizing the executing environment. So pipeline is designed to easily use Docker images as the execution environment for a single stage or the entire pipeline. So meaning that a user can define the tools required for their pipeline, so without having to manually configure agents. So here in our first example, what we will do is it comes under the agent. We are going to use a new specific agent called Docker. So we'll use a Docker agent, and using the Docker agent we are going to build an image. That is our first example, and after that we will see the and that image, and after that it should print node version, which the image version it's been downloaded. So let's get into the action now, but for that we need to do the following things. So Docker in Jenkins, for that you require a Docker tool, yes or no, and you require a Docker plugin also. So first what will we do is, for our first activity is to install the Docker engine in Jenkins server. Install the Docker engine in Jenkins server. It's not inside the Jenkins application, or it is inside the Jenkins server. So let's get into that first. So let's do our first action, the first activity in this: install Docker engine in Jenkins server. Let me get into the Jenkins server. So this is my Jenkins server. So I'll check the Docker version. So bash user bin docker, so nothing is there. You just copy this and paste it here. After it's gonna useful, so let me paste it here. So there is no docker. So now let's install the docker. For that, let me get into the docker installation guide or installation documentation. Let me zoom this and let me go for the Ubuntu. So I'm in Ubuntu. You can see that it's Docker engine Ubuntu, and installation methods. The setup the repository. So we'll install using the repository. So I'm gonna explain in detail about the installation of Docker in Docker module. For now, let's install it. The first step is, as usual, you have to update the apt-get package. Then you have to install some CS certificates, curl, GNU, PG, LSB release. These utilities we have to in install. Let me install those utilities. Yeah, CS certificates, curl, GNU, PG, LSB release, all utilities has been installed. Now it's time to add Docker official GPG key. As we have discussed, the GPG key. So you will have a public key and then private key. So that was generated by Docker, and this is Docker official key. So obviously the key, the docker.gpg, the let us see that key also. Let me copy this so that to have a secure transaction, to set up or establish a secure connection between a Docker official website and then Docker official dockerhub.com with our server, we need to give this GPG key. So let me copy this and paste it here and execute it. So save I. Yeah, now let's check that it is cd etc apt and key rings. And let us see, you have the docker.gpg. Let me do the cat docker.gpg. Yeah, we cannot see that's anything. That's fine. Let me clear the screen for this moment and let's continue with the installation procedure. Let's execute this and say and click on that. So your package is getting updated. It's done. Now it's time to install the latest version of our application, our Docker engine. Docker C, Docker C, CLI container, and say why. So now it's unpacking container.io. So Docker C, CLI is getting unpacked, and Docker CE is getting unpacked, and Docker Compose plugin is getting unpacked. So system link, mandb is done, systemmd is done. So absolutely brilliantly installed. So now let me clear the screen and check the Docker version. Here it is. Docker version is 20.10.53 and build version. Now let's find the Docker home directory. So Docker home directory is in cd var lib, and so let me click that. You see that Docker on top. Let me click on Docker and give ls. Here it is. So Docker has been successfully installed. So now let me copy this Docker root directory or home directory. Let me copy this Docker home directory and place it in my sticky note. Okay. So Docker root and paste it. That's it. So now the next task to be done is add Jenkins user. Add Jenkins user to the Docker group and reboot it. Why? Because Jenkins is going to use this Docker as an agent. So separate agent. So Docker, so to use Jenkins as a Docker agent, it needs to be user of Docker group. It should be part of Docker group. Now let me say id Docker. You see that? Okay. Okay, you see that we got a lot of stuff. Let me clear the screen first and I'll show you. ID Jenkins. You see that this is the user ID of Jenkins and this is the group ID of Jenkins and groups 120, and similarly this is Docker 998. So now what I have to do is, I think by the time it's okay, let me check it. Let us add Docker Jenkins into the Docker group. For that we have to say user clear mod user mod option A and group, it's a Docker group and user is Jenkins. So now let's check ID Jenkins. So it's been added into the Docker group, we can clearly see that. Or if you want to cross check it more, let us get into the etc and click on ls and do cat group. Yes, here it is. You see that Docker group consists of Jenkins as a user in it. That's it. Why do we require this? Because Jenkins wants to use a Docker as an agent. So we have to attach the user. We have to attach Jenkins as a Docker group user. So it's done. So let's get back to the action. So the second part has also been done. So let me mark it. So now it's time to install the Docker pipeline plugin. So let's get into the Jenkins and go to the dashboard, log into the Jenkins, keep me signed in, don't throw me out in between, and click on manage Jenkins and come to the manage plugins and available plugins and search what is the plugin that we require. We require Docker pipeline. Let me type Docker pipeline. So Docker API, Amazon ECR, Docker slaves, or else let me check on install plugins at least. So Docker, yeah, here it is. So Docker pipeline, it's been installed. It was installed earlier. So if you haven't installed, you just install it. So what I have to do is I have to enable the installation. That's it. Okay. So I have enabled the Docker pipeline installation, and I would say restart once no jobs are running. Let me restart it. And one more thing here to be done is, so after attaching a Jenkins user to the Docker group, you have to reboot the system. So I have rebooted it. Now let me restart it. So that's what we have mentioned here, but it's unable to restart. Yes. So after that you have to reboot. So I have restarted it. Now let me get into the so what's the problem here? Why we are unable to start it? So I have to check Amazon EC2 instance. So let me, okay, here is my EC2 instance. So yeah, let me click on instances, Jenkins server. Yeah, this is my EC2 instance of Jenkins server, and come to the security group. What is the issue? So normally what happens whenever you reboot it, the Jenkins security group, will take a default custom default IP. So that's the reason we have to reset it whenever you reboot it. Now I am gonna reset that rules, Jenkins security group rules in this case. Yeah, it's up. So let me click on this inbound rules and edit inbound rules. You see that it has become a custom, but we want my IP. Here also it has become custom, we want my IP. And now you save the rules. You have not made any changes, that's okay. The rules has been saved. Now let's get into our machine and restart it. Yes, it's done. So become sudo I and clear the screen, and again you give id Jenkins. It's become a Docker, the part of Docker group, and Docker version. It's 20.10.23. So rest all fine. Now it's time to get back to our work again, to the Jenkins dashboard. So far what we have done, so we have installed the Docker plugin and we have rebooted, we have restarted also. So let me mark this here. So let me get back to the manage Jenkins one more time. So let me check manage plugins whether the Docker pipeline has been installed properly or not. So let me type Docker pipeline. Yes, it's enabled. It was installed and it's enabled. So let me get into the dashboard and let's create our first pipeline. So now here, so Docker in Jenkins pre-setup is done. This is our pre-setup. Now let's do the exercises. So examples. Let's take a first example, the simplest example. Here what we're going to do is we're going to fetch a node Docker image and we're going to run it. That's it. And it's going to print the version of the node image. Okay. So it's node image example. So I will give Docker pass pipeline as code and example or exercise 1. So let's put our first pipeline. Let's write our first pipeline. So we'll keep the same pipeline script option. We don't need to touch that. So I will write pipeline directive first. Then inside that I will add an agent because we are using a different agent, that is a Docker. So Docker as an agent. So Docker agent, and what we want to do, image name is node and 16, 13, 1 and Alpine. So this is our image. So agent has been put and then Docker has been attached in that. Now let's write one stage here. So stages directive block has been opened. Then the stage inside that is stage testing Docker. Okay. Then the stage test Docker block has been opened. Inside that I will mention steps, and the steps here is sh node. I just want to get the version of it. Rest all remains same. Let's cross check the pipeline one more time. Pipeline directive block has been opened. Inside that we have attached an agent. So agent block, inside that agent block we have attached the Docker agent. As we have attached the Jenkins user into the Docker group, so we can easily access the Docker now. So then the stages comes into the picture, the first stage, and then steps inside that sh. So rest all fine. Let me save it and let us run our first Jenkins pipeline with Docker or using Docker. So it's building. Let's wait for the magic. Let's see what's going to happen. It's taking some time. Means it's working. There is no issue. Yes. Stage 1 test Docker has been built. Yeah, it's successful. You can see the green symbol here. Let me zoom it more. You can see the green symbol here. It's successful. Let me get into the console and see what had happened. You see the console running on Jenkins in this workspace, and after that the Docker inspect f and this command has been executed. Then it pulled this image, docker pull node alpine. This image has been pulled, and then so when this image has been pulled, all the layers that are there inside that image has also been pulled, and then the pulling is completed. Once it is completed and it has done the checksum verification, and that is also done, you can see the status downloaded newer image with the node this one. And so Jenkins does not seem to be running inside a container. So now the docker run, so this has been started, you can see that. So docker now finally this has to be executed, that is node version. So docker, after that docker has stopped the container and removed the volumes also. So everything has been done, stopping the container. Docker has run the container, and then it has printed the version has been printed, that is v16.13.1, and then docker has been stopped, and then it's been removed, the volumes also been removed along with that. So let us cross check that. From here it's very clear that your image has been pulled, container has been run. The container, after starting, it has printed a message, that's the version, and then it's been stopped and removed. That we can clearly see from here. But let's get into our server and see what had happened so far. So okay, clear the screen and docker images. So got permission denied, that's fine. I have an idea to do that. So docker images, you see that your node image, you got it, 28FD30C24DEB. So let me get into that. And where is that? Here is the come to the console output and docker image status, docker image ID, you can find out. And after that, this is the container ID. You see the docker image, exactly same node 16.13.1 alpine, that's the tag. And you see that tag here, node repository, and then tag name and image ID. Okay, let's give docker ps no container, docker ps no container, because the container has been dead and it's been removed. So that's the reason we could not find any container here. So let me get back to our and click on here. So this is our build, and here you can see the workspaces. So if you go to the var lib Jenkins workspace docker pass exercise 1, here you're gonna find, so cd var lib docker and ls, what is that, just a minute, workspace cd, okay, that should be inside the container. So you can see that your workspace inside the Jenkins, and you are with this you are able to run your, okay, let me get back to the sticky note. So the first example has been run, the image has been fetched, and it has been run. So as we are seeing on the slide, we have fetched, we have pulled this image and we have run this image, and the image, the container has printed the version of the image, the version of that node container. Okay,